Go ahead and get started. So welcome guys to week 5. So I hope everyone was able to get their box. So you should have gotten your second box already that has all of your items and materials you need for the last 4 weeks. So like I said, we are on week 5 and we have a total of 8 weeks. So we're over halfway through. Again, today we are specifically going to be covering flash floods and just flooding in general. Again, why it happens, why it occurs, as well as what the impacts are. Because again, flooding is a big issue and definitely certain parts of the world. Maybe not so much here, or we'll talk about kind of locally where it has affected areas. And again, like I said before, we'll kind of dive into, again, what all it impacts. So like I said too, just as, again, a refresher, all your materials are in your box. We don't have a particular activity/craft today. We're just going to kind of go through things. I also have a special animal friend that's in this lovely little box here. You guys, some of you who have been in ECO before may have seen this lovely friend before. If not, we're gonna, like I said, we'll dive into it. We'll check them out at the very, very end as well. So before we get into today's full-on topic, again, we're gonna cover our weather for today. So if anybody would like to, again, either share or you can put it in the chat, how would you describe what today's weather is like? Again, however you would describe. What is the weather like today? Do people think? Any thoughts? Again, you can always put it in the chat if you want. Would you rather put it there? I'll start off by saying it was a bit cooler today. It was definitely not as nice and warm as it has been these past few days. It was also quite overcast, quite cloudy as well. Anybody else have any descriptions of today at all? And if not, totally fine. Trying to think how else I would describe today. It was a bit humid today. Like there's definitely some air, definitely some water in the air, I should say. Definitely a bit wet. Yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit unseasonably cooler today. Again, we are in May. So something to think about. All right. Next question is, what should you wear? So for example, I wore a long sleeve shirt today. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt because again, it's not as toasty as used to, or it was earlier this week or last week. I just wore pants today and some shoes as well. And then, so again, something a little bit warmer today, maybe even a jacket today, because it was, like I said, it was a little bit cooler. And then, like always, what can you do outside? Is there anything special anybody has done outside this week or was able to do outside today at all? I know you guys probably had school, so maybe had a chance to go out or maybe didn't, you never know. Anyone who wants to share? Don't have to if you don't want to. I would say today was nice to maybe go for a walk for sure. It's a bit windy. All right. Nobody wants to share, that's fine. Well, we'll go right on into it then. Like I said, we'll start and talk about flooding in general. Talk about where it floods. So if, like I said, if you have your paper with you, we'll go over all of this stuff as well. So we have our flash floods paper. So again, talking about, you know, basically, how would you describe a flood? Let's start that off before we get into fully what flash floods are. If I were to say to you, this area has flooded over, what do I mean by that? Anybody want to share? What does it mean for an area to flood? Anybody have any ideas? Again, totally fine if not. Again, you can always put it in the chat if you didn't want to say it right off either. Give you a second. Lots of water, perfect. I see Ben put lots of water, absolutely, yes. Definitely there's tons and tons of water when it floods. Anything else you would add with flooding? Oh, I got a question for the Family Pass. So I think it was Julie that asked. So the Family Pass, real quick divergent. The Family Pass is for basically a free visit to Irvine. So in your boxes, you got a couple of different goodies in your box, and that including was a free pass to Irvine as well. So normally it does cost $5 a person to come into Irvine. But with that pass that you got in your box, basically you just show that to our front gatehouse guest, our visitor coordinators. You just show them that, and that allows you to get into the into Irvine for free, basically, for that one time. So I definitely recommend, if you're able to, definitely come out and check out Irvine, especially once the weather gets really nice and beautiful. It's definitely a really nice area to go to. Our main center is currently still closed, so the building is closed, but all of our trails and stuff like that are open and available, to include our aviary you can check out where all of our birds are located, as well as all the cool different locations on our trails. Also too, yeah, Nicole said as well, there's also a, you should have gotten a bandana that has a map of Irvine as well. So that again will help you if you would like to come visit again. You can kind of check out the different areas again that we have all around the center, or all around Irvine in general. So yeah, so that's what that is what the Family Pass is for. So again, at any point in time, come and visit Irvine and bring that with you, and you won't have to pay the admission price for that one time. All right, so back on to floods. We had, like I said, Ben said that flooding just means you basically get a lot of water, and that's kind of a good way to think about it. You basically get a lot of water in a certain area or in a certain location, kind of thing. So something to think about, does it always flood when it rains? So generally flooding is caused by a large sum or a large amount of rain that happens. Does flooding always happen when it rains? What do we think? For example, it rained, there was a pretty bad storm sometime earlier this week. Me and my pregnancy brain, I cannot think of when that was, but does it always flood when it rains? What do we think? What are our thoughts? I see Ben says no. Angel says no. Danielle says no. Perfect. Perfect. Everyone's right on track. No, I would agree. It definitely doesn't always flood when it rains. Wonder why that is. So we're actually going to do kind of a quick small experiment to kind of show you why it doesn't flood all the time when it rains. And this is an experiment too that you could always do at home as well, but I figured it'd be cool to see here too. So just going to take me a second. Again, you can do this at home at some point as well. And it's pretty easy to show. So first off, I have a little mini clay pot that I'm going to be filling up with some soil. Here's my big old bag of soil. So I'm going to take a second.
Do we have the pot? Are we doing this, or are you just doing it?
I am just doing this. So I'm just showing you guys an experiment you could do. So I didn't give you guys these materials. It's just something, again, that you could do. And you can do this too. You can do it by just having a cup at home, and you can just go outside and get some dirt from the outside as well. So again, just kind of following along as I throw dirt everywhere. So, and I'm going to compact it just a little bit. So I have my lovely little pot, and I have some soil inside. So this soil is going to represent our just regular ground outside. Obviously there's no grass and stuff on it, but that's okay. So this is going to represent just your, regular ground, soil, that kind of stuff that you find outside. That's what it's going to represent. So what we're going to simulate, and what we're going to do is we're going to basically kind of go through and make it rain in our soil. So I'm going to do that by, I have a little pipette, and I have a lovely glass of water. And so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start pretending, or I'm going to start to act like it's raining outside. And so what that means is I'm going to start adding some drops to my soil here. So I'm just going to take my dropper, fill it up with some water, and I'm just going to start putting some drops inside. So I'm going to put, let's say, about 10 drops inside. I'm trying to shake it up. Well, there we go. So it might be a little bit hard to see. I might have to tilt down my screen here. So you can see it inside here. I'm just going to start adding some of my water and stuff like that. Just constantly start adding it. Just like if it was raining, again, you would start to get your raindrops. They start to collect and everything like that. They're starting to collect. And yes, so I started to add my raindrops, and so I'm starting to get some water on the very, very top. What I'm going to do to kind of speed up the process, I'm going to start adding my water a little bit more faster, I should say. And so what's happening is, besides water going everywhere, is my water is starting to absorb into my soil here. So you can see it's starting to absorb in the soil. My soil is getting wetter and wetter. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to add some water. And again, my soil is starting to get nice and wet until what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a lot of water at one time. So if you can see, I've added some water a lot of times, and you can just see the water is just sitting right on top. It's also draining out from the bottom, but you can see all of this water is just kind of sitting right on top of my soil here. It's eventually working its way down, but it's all just kind of sitting right on top of my soil here. Also, don't mind my huge mess. So what this is showing, I'll move all my stuff over here. So what this is showing is kind of demonstrating, again, what it does during a flood. So what happens is your soil or the ground can absorb so much water at a time. You know, it's raining outside, you know, you're watching the rain come. It's only got one place to go. It's going on your ground, or it's going on a hard surface, like a street or a road, whichever. So what happens is that water is coming down, and it only has so many places to go. It only can go so many areas. And so what happens is when you get flooding, and we'll talk about flash flooding as well, when you get flooding, basically what happens is all of that water cannot get absorbed by the soil. So soil's natural property, it's going to absorb all your water because that's what it does. It's got little kind of holes or areas inside it that allows it to be kind of absorbed. But it only can do that for so much water. There's kind of a limit as to how much water the soil can hold, basically. So what happens is during a flood, what happens is your soil or your area gets so wet, so saturated, that then after a certain point, after it can't absorb the water anymore, it just then starts to pool on top of the soil. So like you saw in the clay pot, it just starts to sit at the very, very top of your soil, and it doesn't actually drain down and absorb into the soil. So the issue with that, and so what happens, or why you get flooding, is because all of that water then has to go somewhere. So if your water isn't getting absorbed into your soil, it's going to then start to get layered up, and it's going to start to go in other areas where it can be moved, kind of thing. So that tends to then end up happening on areas like your roads, or areas where your water should not be sitting, because your water should be either draining into your soil, or it should drain into different like big drain pools and stuff like that, like you see them off on the side of the roads, stuff like that. So it should be draining there. But if you get so much water in a short period or a certain period of time, and it doesn't allow for the soil to absorb it all, that water has somewhere else to go. And so what happens is that water kind of pools up, and it ends up going, or it ends up staying on the road, or it ends up kind of building up and then going into different areas. So again, this is a picture of, I believe it's of New Orleans. So after Hurricane Katrina, There are different means as to why flash floods occur. So one of the ways, if you have a big coastal event, so for example, a hurricane is going to cause flooding because again, you're bringing in so much water to an area and there's only so much area that that your habitat can hold. It can only hold so much water. So that is why, again, also too, if you have, depending on what kind of ground or soil you have, that'll depend on how much water is getting absorbed. Also too, if you're in a city and you only have concrete roads, can concrete roads absorb water? What do you guys think? Do you think concrete roads, like your asphalt and your, your regular just kind of roads, sidewalks, that kind of thing, do those absorb water? Or I should say too, do they absorb water as much as your soil does? What do we think? Okay. Pretty sure this was recent. All right, perfect. Yes. So I see in the chat, I see no or kind of yes. So I would say absolutely not. Your concrete and your soil do not absorb in the same way. So your concrete is more than likely going to just move your water into a different area. It's going to absorb a little bit, and there are some types of surfaces like porous pavements and stuff like that. They do allow some drainage of that water, but for the most part, if you're going to have water on any type of concrete or asphalt, it's just going to go right off of that and it's going to be taken or dispersed somewhere else. Whereas your soil is actually going to absorb that water itself. So for big cities that only have, your concrete, your asphalt, all those kinds of things, there's again, nowhere for that water to go. And so it ends up pooling up. It ends up going in areas that is, again, maybe not the best kind of thing. Also, something to think about too is catastrophic failure in infrastructure. So you're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Big words. So what that basically means is that there are different things set up in cities that is meant to hold your water, or it's meant to kind of direct where your water is supposed to go. And so if you don't have the proper setup, or if it's older, or if it's not up to date, you can have issues. If you guys were going to see a quick clip, I hope it's going to show. We'll see if technology will be our friend. If you guys have ever heard about the Ellicott City flooding that happened a few years ago, and they're still kind of working, or they're trying to make sure it was being helped and stuff like that. There was a big amount of flooding, flash flooding that occurred in Ellicott City. So I'm going to try and see if I can present my screen to then show the video. So bear with me for a second. Okay. So I believe we're here. All right. So can everybody see the video? Yay, nay? Take a quick yay, nay. All right, so we're gonna see this video was nicely labeled as "Cars Swept Away." Hold on, I didn't see what the full title was. "Cars Swept Away as Flash Floods Rage Through Ellicott City." So we're gonna take a quick look and see what's going on in Ellicott City. Oof. I hope you guys can see it. If there's any reason why you can't, let me know. So as you can see, currently, or not currently, but as you can see, there are definitely, oh, hold on, let me make sure. Okay, perfect, you guys can see it, perfect, okay. So yeah, so as you can see in this video, you have a huge amount of water. And again, this water can't be absorbed anywhere. There isn't any soil. There isn't any areas for this water to be kind of absorbed, especially the amount of water that's happening. So what's happening then, or what the result is that all that water is then moving at high speeds and it's going to different areas and stuff like that. So it has to, you can see that's inside this house right now. So it's just pooling right on inside. And again, as you can see, all of this water just has to sit somewhere or it's flowing. So think of it, so this main strip is, I believe, the main part of Ellicott City. It's that main road area, or like their main street essentially. And it's probably at least a few feet deep of water, just straight water, which is pretty crazy, pretty crazy. So again, this was just a way to show you guys, and again, just kind of demonstrate and say, and kind of show you what, again, flooding is. All right, hold on, we had a question. The real question is why? right. So again, with flash flooding, so actually Ava put a good point if you guys see her question in the chat. So the thing with flooding, or the thing also with flash flooding, so the thing that kind of distinguish the two is that flash flooding is one of those things where it happens very quickly. And it happens, not to say it can't happen when it's not planned. So what flash flooding means is that, again, you expect, or you can see in the radar that you're getting so much water. But again, you plan and stuff like that, but a lot of times people are told to then evacuate or to go to safer areas when there's that prediction or that plan of it flooding. In turn, again, too, flash flooding can happen again really quickly, or it can happen in such a short period of time, but sometimes people get stuck, or people don't believe that it's actually going to end up flooding. And that obviously is, not ideal. But again, that's a lot of times too why people get trapped when there is flash flooding, because it happens so quickly, or they don't realize, again, too, if it's necessarily because of a failure in their bridge or a failure in their dam that they have set up that's supposed to collect all that water, they obviously have issues. So good question though. So again, it kind of just depends. You are told though, or, you are advised if there is going to be a lot of rain, and again, they're predicting flooding, you want to go somewhere that, again, you can be at a higher level and keep yourself safe. So on the back, again, we'll quickly review just because we only have a few more minutes left, is again, what are the impacts of flooding? So, we talk about, clearly with people, as we just saw, some issues with flooding, obviously, is that you're probably going to get stranded where you are. So either if you were in a house, you might get stranded there. Or again, in this case too, people getting stuck in their vehicles. Your car cannot move through a 4-foot river of water. And people don't necessarily realize that. So flooding obviously can be very harmful for people because it obviously destroys homes. It kind of limits you on where you can go. If you guys saw, or maybe, I don't know if you remember how old you were, but like when Katrina hit down in New Orleans, it was a big thing because people were getting trapped in their homes because they literally could not go out of their home because there was so much water dispersed. So again, big impact on humans for sure. And then animals for sure too. Animals are greatly affected by floods because not only obviously are they out and about, but it's their homes that are being affected. So obviously, if you have this deer right here, he's hanging out on a roof, you're normally in the forest. Well, if your forest gets flooded or there's, only so many areas that the water can go, the animals have to adapt to that. They either have to go to a different area to where it's not flooded, or they have to find higher ground. And can be a little bit hard for some animals. For example, our dear friend, he made a good choice going on that roof, but other animals might not be able to access that or might not be able to go to that level. So even too as well, a lot of times think, oh, well then, birds should be totally fine. They can fly, they can just fly off to a different area, or they can just chill at the top of a tree. But what people don't realize is that it actually can still be affecting for birds because of how much water is coming down. Again, if it's caused by rain, and if their feathers get too wet, they actually aren't able to fly. A lot of people don't realize that, birds can't just fly all the time. They can't fly in huge rainstorms for certain periods of time because their feathers get too wet and it actually weighs them down and it's, again, too saturated. So again, there's a lot of, there can be issues with trying to get away and stuff like that, even if you're a bird, even if you could technically fly away. So something to think about. And then last but not least, plants, again, you know, that's probably obvious too. Plants cannot move. So wherever they're located, again, it's going to basically, you know, it's going to get flooded. And so their roots that are in the ground can only stay on for so long until they get obviously ripped or they get, you know, pulled off and stuff like that. So plants, again, are definitely probably one of the biggest things affected by floods because, again, obviously they can't move unlike people and animals. So they definitely, you know, have issues. And again, too, you get so much water in your roots and you're not able to get oxygen that they end up drowning a lot of times, which again, for plants, you're like, oh, well, it's just a plant. Maybe not even thinking about it. But again, that has human impact. We've talked about, maybe not in this class, but we talk about other times, you know, the scale of if you affect one thing, it affects, you know, a lot of other things. So, you know, if your plants start to get drowned out and you don't have your plants anymore, that can start to affect all your levels of your habitat. It can affect your animals, affect your animals that are eating those plants and vice versa. So something to think about. So we kind of trekked through that one. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see our animal. I will make sure we can see her next week. So make sure you join on for that. But we are just about out of time. So that is it for today. Like I said, we'll try and see the animal tomorrow, or I'm sorry, next week. But that is it for now. So